1 month ago, Donald Trump paused the 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico, giving the countries 30 days to tighten their borders to illegal immigration and drugs. Well, Trump says time's up, the pause is over, the tariffs hit at the stroke of midnight. Let's bring in the CBC's Katie Simpson with the latest. She is, of course, in Washington. Okay, Katie, walk us through what Trump is saying at this point.
Yeah, the thing is that if Trump doesn't change his mind between now and midnight, it looks like those tariffs are a go. If you feel like you've seen this movie before, we have. This is sort of what happened in the lead up to the last tariff threat that ultimately got delayed by a month. But it certainly is the worst case scenario for both Canada and Mexico. This will have a devastating effect on Canadian jobs, on the Canadian economy, and it will have a devastating effect on the economy in the United States, too, at least in the short term, very much so, with prices going up, with concerns about what's going to happen to jobs in the auto sector. Again, if Donald Trump does go ahead with this plan. Here's what he said in the Oval Office this afternoon. He was actually at an event where he was announcing a very significant investment in the U.S. semiconductor sector to create, he says, upwards of 25,000 jobs and increase the production of semiconductors in the United States. And sort of speaking to the broader picture theme about how if companies want to avoid tariffs, they need to set up shop in the United States, create those jobs, and invest in America. So that is the event where Donald Trump was asked about his plan to go ahead with tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China. Have a listen.
Very importantly, tomorrow tariffs 25% on Canada and 25% on Mexico, and that'll start. So they're going to have a tariff. So what they have to do is build their car plants, frankly, and other things in the United States, in which case they have no tariffs.
Over 40? Here's why learning AI could be your best career move yet.
That is Donald Trump talking about his economic goals when it comes to tariffs, to build more plants in the United States, create more auto sector jobs, which is what Donald Trump has said repeatedly. But remember, these tariffs that he says are coming into effect starting tomorrow, he says, are related to border security. Remember, he has said in executive orders that Donald Trump and his team will examine whether the changes that both Canada and Mexico make to border security, whether they satisfy him, looking to stop and slow illegal immigration, which has been slowed significantly, particularly at the southern U.S. border, and to crack down on the illegal flow of fentanyl into the United States. Howard Lutnick, who is the Commerce Secretary, had said today on CNN that fentanyl deaths are down, I believe, by 15%, he said. But while he said that, Canada and Mexico have done a good job on the border, he's saying that not enough has been done to stop the flow of fentanyl. Now, at that event, Donald Trump sort of backtracked and went back to his original messaging there, saying this is about fentanyl, this is about the illegal flow of drugs into the United States, and that Canada and Mexico aren't doing enough, taking aim at China as well. China is going to face a new tariff, an additional 10% tariff, meaning all imports coming in from China are going to be hit with a 20% tariff. But at this time, at this moment as we speak, at 5:04 p.m. Eastern time, David, it seems the president's plan is going to go ahead. Yeah. We know that Donald Trump has changed his mind in the past, and that's why, even though the president came out and said it forcefully, we don't know if it's actually going to take effect until that clock turns midnight and they actually sort of kick in.
Yeah, and sort of the metrics keep shifting, Katie, right? Like, fentanyl seizures from the Canada-U.S. border are down 97% in the last month, according to the U.S. stats. But, Howard Lutnick talking about deaths, solving the public health crisis on the U.S. side is not something Canada can do. So, this is the situation. What happens next, Katie? We've got, little under 7 hours to see if there's a new executive order extending the pause. Where does this go?
Well, the thing is, that's the big thing, right, David? It's that shifting goalposts. This has been sort of the concern from the very beginning. That original threat that came out on a Truth Social post back on an evening in November, Donald Trump put these tariffs sort of in line with, he linked it to border security, talking about the flow of illegal immigration as well as the flow of illegal drugs, specifically fentanyl, into the U.S. Senior U.S. officials have repeatedly told Canadian officials this is about fentanyl, this is about the border. But when you hear the president in his own words, he sort of lumps together a whole bunch of trade irritants with Canada, whether it's the trade deficit. Canada products into the U.S., and that creates a trade surplus for Canada. It sells more goods into the U.S. than the U.S. sells into Canada, but also complaints about Canada's defense spending, complaints about, unfair trade practices, complaints about Canada's digital services taxes, all of these kinds of things. And we do know that this is just the first wave in a whole series of tariffs. So these tariffs are allegedly related to border security, though we've heard different reasoning from the president himself. The next sort of wave of tariffs comes next week, March 12th, and that's 25% on steel and aluminum. That's not just for Canada, that's for all of America's trading partners, so that is significant. And then it's that first week of April where Donald Trump is going to, we're still waiting for the details, but Donald Trump is planning to impose a broad swath of tariffs against all trading partners, taking aim at people who have, digital services taxes, Canada's GST, taking aim at possibly some of the tariffs that we have protecting Canada's dairy industry, longstanding irritants in the Canada-U.S. trading relationship. And it's going to be as well as for all of America's trading partners. So those details are going to slowly be revealed, with the aim for Donald Trump being April 2nd to sort of create what he calls the reciprocal tariffs. Those are sort of the things to watch for next. But again, we're going to be waiting to hear anything either out of Ottawa, Mexico City, or Washington to see if Donald Trump really has made up his mind. The thing is, whatever Donald Trump does decide, he has a really big night tomorrow. He's doing a joint address to Congress, and whatever decision he makes, he's going to try and sell it to the American people and lawmakers during that event. But again, we still have a few more hours before midnight. Whether he changes his mind, we know he is one to change his mind. We don't know until it's going to roll over to midnight.
It could be 50% by midnight. Who knows? All right, Katie, thank you so much. That's the CBC's Katie Simpson in Washington. In just 5 hours, 40